Hello and welcome to Sew It Begins. My name is Victoria Ring Eisen. Today we're going to do a very easy skirt. We're going to do an elastic waistband skirt. This is a very forgiving kind of skirt because elastic forgives you a little bit. It is also very easy to tailor it in the way that feels more comfortable to you. Hence why I like it as a good starting option if you're looking to get into clothes making. Again, I have a lot of different options here, but come join me. Let's get started. I'm going to do a very simple skirt with you today, and it really involves two big pieces: an elastic waistband. You see some examples on the screen, and then you need your fabric. I always overestimate my fabric in case I make a mistake, in case I want to make it a little bit longer. Sometimes when you try it on, you go, oh, I really want to add a different waistband. This gives you some of that options. When approaching the skirt, you have two basic options. Again, I'm trying to keep it simple. The first one is a circle skirt. So that is just like it sounds. You take your fabric, you cut it out into a circle, which uses a lot more fabric, but gives you that very princessy, very floaty skirt that a lot of people think of when they think of skirts. The option that I'm going to follow today is a panel skirt. You can still follow this tutorial if you want to do a circle skirt. I am going to show you quickly how to do that, but that is not what I'm following because I am making three different skirts. One for some small people in my life. We are doing this for a historical costume. And with that, I just couldn't buy the fabric to do full circle skirts. They didn't have the width. So you will see me doing a panel skirt. There's a couple different ways of doing panels. I will go over some of that. But make sure you have the elastic waistband. This is where it is kind of important to have the right materials. With your waistband, you need to make sure it's wide enough that it doesn't roll over. You do want to make sure it's a woven one so that way it will actually stand up. There's a lot of different examples of elastic. As you can see here, I found some examples from Wawick.com. You can find it at Walmart. You can find it on sewing machine parts. There's a lot of different places. Look around and figure out what works for you. So now that I have all my fabric ironed out and it's still here resting, I'm going to come over here. And I had done measurements in the store and roughly calculated out how much I needed. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our tape measure and we're going to measure here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to figure out where on the waist you want it. Does that feel about good? Mm-hmm. You like it there? Okay, we're going to come down here. And it looks like we're going to finger walk it down. Here, can you hold this right here for me? Hold it right there. Atta girl. Okay, so we're going to follow it down. So we need it to be about, how's that feel? That feel good? Yeah. Okay, so that is 21 inches long. Now, I'm going to want to add at least an inch for hem, because if I do a double fold and do a quarter fold on each, that's my half. And so next step is we're going to come around here. And I'm going to have you put this right there, right where you're going to wear the skirt. Okay, turn around. Oh, other direction, darling. Other direction. There we go. There you go. Keep turning. Okay, there we go. And this gives me my waist measurement of about 21 inches. Now, that's cinched up. I don't think that's going to be comfortable. So we're going to make it 22. This is going to be an elastic band. We can make it a little bit tighter, but 22 should be a little bit more comfortable on her. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we want it to be comfortable. We don't really care what the measurements are. We just want to be comfortable, right? Does that sound like a game plan? So for another skirt, we're going to measure. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it roughly where we want it. Now, for around the waist, I'm going to tie this around myself and I'm going to take a look at it. I can't do it while I'm filming myself. So for the length, I find it's a little bit easier to put that and drop that down. You'll notice those are little numbers. I can just have it run along. And then I can take this end and measure off roughly where I want it to go. And once I get it where I know, hey, look, my finger's on the measurement that I actually want. So that's a good way of measuring yourself if you don't have someone to help you or if you aren't making it for someone else. So when it comes to calculating out the circle skirt, I like to go to Mewed Fabrics. They have a circle skirt calculator for you. So it's just a matter of figuring out which one suits your needs. And this is what it looks like here. So we're going to come over to the circle skirt calculator. I'm doing it in inches because that's how I tend to measure. You can do it in centimeters if that's your preference. This one has what length do you want, mini, midi, maxi, and again, you can adjust it, but it gives you a rough measurement. And the nice thing about it is you see here where it's got these lines to show you roughly where that falls. And so for the purposes of this skirt, I know it technically is going to be a mini length, but I want to make sure it has enough room for the elastic waistband and the hem, so I'm making a midi. For the others, they will be maxi length simply because of the height. Because again, this is relation to a 5'7" model, so that is something you are going to want to keep in mind. So when you do the skirt fullness, you say, hey, I want it quarter, half, 3/4, or full. Again, makes it really easy. You can see what it looks like. Then you type in the waist measurement. Because for the first one, it is for a very small person, 22 inches. I probably should be able to do this. Calculate the yardage, scroll down, and it says, hey, you're roughly going to need a So for the results, we have a waist radius of about 4. I am going to need about 2 yards of fabric, and the fabric width is going to be 61. Now, what they do here is they figured out how to do it for you. So if you aren't sure how to do a circle skirt, this is very nice. So this is the selvage, shows you the edges. What you're going to do is you're going to fold it into quarters. You're going to cut out this radius. Again, it was a radius of about 4. You're going to cut out this length that you need, and that's where you're going to see it. So that is a very easy way to do it. And they will tell you, hey, look, this isn't going to work. So they will show you how to make a circle skirt with panels if you want to do that option. I am going to have to do that with the other skirts simply because, again, the fabric is not quite wide enough for the full circle skirt. And panels are fairly easy to do. So you'll see me doing some examples. So when it comes to the circle skirt, if your fabric is not wide enough for the fullness of the circle skirt that you want, you will have to consider panels. And so again, Mood Fabrics does have a circle skirt guide. And what they do, and this is more what I use it for, is like a reference point. So you're going to take your fabric, you're going to lay it out, you're going to cut. This is essentially your diameter, so that's double your radius. And then, of course, this is your length of fabric that you need. And you're going to lay out your fabric. So you can see it's one full rectangle. So you're going to lay out one here, and you're going to lay out one here. Now, if you're going to do it with 3 panels, and you see how they have it designed. They have the full half circle here, and then the 2 quarters right here, where you're laying one out on the fold. So it gives you that one continuous circle. Again, they have the radius and the length. Then again, they have this one over here that's going to cut out 2 quarters. So that way when you put all of them together, you get that fullness that you're looking for. This is one way to do it. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it a different way, but this is one way to do it. So after we had done our Mood City circle skirt calculator, I wanted to show you as to why I was not going to do a circle skirt. So as we said before, it's roughly a radius of 4 to do the thickness. And you can kind of see here when I went ahead and sketched that out because that's hard to do. But basically what you do is you take, kind of like when you were doing them in school, is you take your 4-inch and you mark a few different points here, 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 here. And again, this is a quarter of a circle because, and you'll see that I have the fold here. I have folded this in half and in half again. So this is where the corner is, and you can see the 1, 2, and the fold. Okay, now per Mood City, that in order to get a length of 22 inches, I did not have enough fabric. Well, let's go again. We're going to look for the blue line, which is right about here, and we're going to measure out. Okay, well, here's the 12, and there's where the tape measure ends. That is obviously not going to be 22 inches. So I will have to do a panel version of a circle skirt, which is why I kind of showed you how to do a circle skirt, but it's kind of nice having something that says, hey, look, that's not going to work the way you think. So that's why I wanted to show you how it roughly works. Again, you start your measurement here after your radius to get to the length, because if you try and do it here, your skirt is going to be minus this radius in length, and you're going to go, why is it too short? So you measure out the radius first, and then measure your starting point from the radius out to the length of the skirt that you want. So as I said before, I'm doing panels mainly for ease of convenience. My fabric isn't big enough for a circle skirt, so I'm going to do a panel skirt. So with a panel skirt, you have a couple different ways of doing it. So the first way is a rectangle that I've shown here on the screen. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the entire circumference that you need. So again, for a 22-inch waist, divide that by 4 and add a little bit for a seam allowance. That's roughly a couple of 8-inch panels. So it would be about 4 panels. And again, you want to add seam allowance because you will need that with your panels. What I did to give it more flair is I turned it from a rectangle into a trapezoid. So what I did is I literally cut a little bit off where the waist is going to be and added it onto the bottom. So instead of doing 8-inch panels, I cut my trapezoid with like a 6-inch waist and a 10-inch bottom. And you can see by my lovely art design here that it gives you a rough trapezoid. If you want to, you can actually make a couple of pieces that are just triangles. Those are called gores, and those literally just open up the seam even more, and they're just adding more to that base, which adds more to the flare, which gives you more of a circle skull effect than just a straight panel would do. I tend to do more trapezoids. I see what fabric I have, and then I can add triangles if I have it. Or again, I add more trapezoids. It does add more into the waist. So if you are doing, instead of an elastic skirt, one with a waistband, you will want to trim that down a little bit or gather it onto a waistband. But this is a quick and easy way to kind of figure out how to do it. Play around, figure out what you like. So it's very hard to see, but I promise I'm going to explain my math. What I've done here is I've created a line on this edge all the way up, and I've created one on this edge all the way down to the corner. And what I've done is I've taken the waist measurement. I know it needs to be 22 inches. I'm going to make 4 panels. So I'm going to take that, divide it by 4, and I need 5.5 inches. So each of these sections from this edge point here all the way over to here is going to be 5.5, and I'm going to do at least 4 of those. I'm going to see if I can get 5. That way it's got a little bit of extra room, and I'm going to have to add a little bit of extra just for seam allowances. So what I did is I know that this has to be 5.5, but I'm going to divide that in half to make it 2.5 here, 2.5 here. So what I've done is I know this is going to be one corner. Yay! Follow it up, and this is 2.5 inches in on this side. Go over 5.5, and I need to know it goes from this point on down. So what I did is, this is where a clear acrylic roller really helps. I kind of line up my point. I know that this, and it is going to be a little hard to see on the camera, so I do apologize, but the little blue line is where my mark is. So here's 2.5 inches. So I know the next measurement needs to come here. That's when I take my yardstick, and you can kind of see where I just traced it right there. And that gives me an easy trapezoid shape. Now, the reason I'm cutting it on the fold is it'll be easier for me just to cut this edge open, and that gives me 2 out of my 4 panels. And when I do that, that makes it way easier to see if I can't cut out just 2 more sets. And then that'll give me the skirt that I need. And again, this top bit is going to be gathered. It is going to be in an elastic casing. You'll notice that it's a woven elastic. I specifically chose a non-roll one, and that's gonna impact the length as well. So all of that is going to be gathered up here, but it'll create a more flowy skirt similar to a circle skirt. So as you can see, now that I've cut out my trapezoids, I actually cut out 6, and I did cut out one set that was a little bit narrower. So you can see here, once I've added 3 of the 6 together, you can see I'm getting that curve along the bottom, and I'm getting a little bit of a curve along the top. And again, I'm doing this straight to make it as easy as possible on myself, but technically, if you wanted to, you could very easily draw more of a curved line here and more of a curved line here, which would give you more of a circle skirt kind of a feel, which again, I'm making this for a fun little project, so I'm not as fussed about that. But thing to note is, obviously I cut these 2 different ways. So I was doing my trapezoid one way, and then I was flipping it the other. This is a non-directional fabric. It's really not going to look too terribly different no matter ways you flip it. You can kind of see, but honestly, with how the floors will set up, it's not an issue. But if you are doing a directional fabric, meaning where it is very clear that you have flipped your grain to the other side, so something more like this, where it has music notes that obviously face one direction, I'm not going to be able to flip my trapezoid. And when I say flip my trapezoid, how I cut them was literally like this. You can see actually where I cut the two, and they actually were right together. So you obviously can do that with a non-directional fabric, but for directional fabrics, like someone's faces or something, that's not going to work. For this project, it'll be just fine, and I purposely chose non-directional fabric for that reason. So the next step, and you'll notice I did a pinking shear here, so technically I don't have to finish the seams. I still am, because it's just good practice for me, and the pinking shears just makes it easier, so that way I know which edges I need to trim up. So I'm going to take at least 3 of the panels at a time, and I'm going to sew these together, and then I'm going to overcast the edges here. I'm going to overcast the edges here. And as I do that, you'll start to see the skirt take shape. Once I have 3 of them together, then I'll come along, I'll do the same 3 over here, and I'll put both halves of the skirt together, and you'll see where there's going to be a little bit of a casing up here for the elastic, and then I can hem this. And the reason I keep talking about the bias is with a circle skirt, you have to let it hang, because the fabric is going to shift out just a little bit. Because this is mostly on the grain, that's not going to happen as much. So I could go ahead and hem it now, and it will have some distortion. It will have some, but not as much as if it was a true circle skirt, which is part of the reason why I kind of like the panels. Again, this is for a small child. They are going to notice it is different. For someone where maybe this is more of a dress you're going to wear for a longer period of time, you probably will want to go ahead, do your elastic, and literally hang it on a hanger and let the bias kind of work itself out to where it's going to eventually fall before you hem it. Again, I'm not going to worry about that. So now that I have the skirt together, and you'll see that I have all the panels, they have been sewn, and then I have overcast the edges just to kind of finish the seams, make sure there's nothing that unravels. A little overkill because I did do pinking shears, but I'd rather do it again. A small child is going to be wearing this, so better safe than sorry. So I've done the same to this top, because this is where the elastic is actually going to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my elastic, and I'm going to measure it here, and I'm going to make sure that when I pin this down, I pin it down bigger than the elastic is wide. And I'm going to sew it, but I'm going to leave about an inch open so I can take a needle, and I can, well, more of a safety pin, weave it through that channel. So both of these edges together, once it's inside, and then sew that shut. And what that's going to happen is that's going to create a continuous loop of elastic that I can't do before I put it in there. I have to do it once the elastic is in there. And then I can finish that little edge, that 1 inch gap that I used to feed the elastic through. And then the other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to work on the hem. And as you can see here, some of my panels are slightly different size. So I'm going to fix them up. But then what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm doing this as video versus trying to show you as I'm doing it, is I'm going to measure up. Once I get the elastic in, I remember I wanted the skirt to be about 20 inches. So this is going to lose at least an inch. I'm going to double check that with the seam gauge here. Yeah, I'm going to lose at least 2 inches on this side. So then when I measure it, I can come back down here and fold up. Now, with the hem, you'll notice I didn't overcast these edges, because I'm going to do what's known as double fold hem. So I'm going to fold it once, fold it twice. And so what you do is you take either your seam gauge, get it to half of the measurement you're going to fold it up, or at least a quarter of an inch. A quarter of an inch is a good measurement. Fold all of it up, iron it, or you can get something that looks like this. This is a hot hem ruler. And what you do is you put this roughly where you want it. You fold up, and then you take your iron and you just iron the fabric down. The nice thing about these is they're designed to be ironed on. This you can't iron on. You can't iron on this red plasticky bit, because that will melt that. Hence why some people, and I'm gonna add myself, like something like this that allows you to fold up. And this is, they have metal ones. This one is more of a, I think of a felting material. But it allows you to fold it up to the distance you want and iron it down without having to remove this. So everything is even. You have a nice clean line to go along. Again, I'm gonna have to do that once I get the casing in, but at least you can kind of see roughly the next steps. All right, so what I've done here is you can see that I've sewn the channel all the way around, but I left myself a good inch or two opening so that way I can join the pieces. And you see I took one end, put a safety pin, and I wove it all the way through this channel. But before I did that, I took the other end, safety pinned it here in the opening so it didn't just go flying into the channel here, and then I have to fish the whole thing out and start over again. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin these, and I'm going to do a zigzag stitch. So I have these two ends, and you'll see that they're kind of overlapping. A lot of people will take a piece of fabric and they'll fold it over both, so they stitch up one side and stitch out the other side. You absolutely can do that. I just didn't feel like doing it this time. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make sure my stitch is set to a zigzag. We're going to make it fairly wide because I want to make sure it really catches it, because that's just how I am. And you're going to see, we're going to go forward a few times. We're going to reverse it a few times. So I want to make sure that that stitch holds, because that is what's going to hold the elastic together. We're going to make sure our uptake lever's up. Pull this out. And voila, elastic attached. Now I'm probably going to fix it here a little bit more off camera, but then I'll be able to take this channel, fold the elastic in, and sew this bit down, and my waistband is effectively done. So with this hem, you can see it is double folded, and I'll pull out this little edge here so you can kind of see. I folded over twice and I've pinned it in place. If you've ironed it very well, you don't actually need to pin it really much at all, but you again need to do a clapper or even a wooden spoon that is unstained, unfinished will do very well, because again, we want to draw the moisture and the heat out so it keeps its shape. And all I'm going to do is a simple straight stitch all the way around, forward, back here, all the way around. And then when I get to this part, I'm going to forward back again. And you'll notice I have all these seams turned this way, and I've done that throughout the entire skirt. So all of the seams will lay one direction. And then once I finish this hem, this skirt is done. I have the elastic all in, we have our seams finished, and this hem is the last little bit, and we'll have a skirt.
Hi everybody.
Can you spin for me so I can see the skirt? There we go. Okay, keep spinning.
Keep spinning.
Keep spinning.
Keep spinning.
There we go. And that is how you do a mock circle skirt with an elastic waistband.